forward, then we have the multi-tenant alerts. The way how it works is basically we are creating the alerts. The alerts have the roles. So because the alert has to have the high permission by default, in the roles we are specifying which role have access to seeing the results of those alerts. So basically, role here is saying that this role, like for example, tenant 1, this role would have access to see the results of those alerts, right? The end result would be to have the energy SOAR combined, and SOAR would give access to the cases, the individual alerts, and the automation and so on. But basically, if we want to rely only on the CM alone, then we specify the tenant's role here, and that would mean that this tenant would have access to see the results of that alert, right? Usually, we would create groups for each tenant. So here would be the tenant 1 group, right? And we can assign different alerts to that, because each tenant would have different requirements for the alerts. So we would group the alerts for each tenant individually with different kind of notification, different thresholds, different sources, and so on. And that alert would have to work on this index pattern that is related to the tenant. So those are the basic multi-tenancy test cases, and most of them are test cases that we did for multi-tenancy customers, for the MSSPs. If you want to connect to the SMTP from the CM side, maybe for your own practices and so on, you have in the directory of OPT alert, and in the OPT alert, you have the config. I will not open it because there are some internal connection to our mailing server, but you have the config YML file, and in there you have the SMTP connection, and there is SMTP authentication file, in which you have to put the user and the password for authentication to the SMTP. The same way you are configuring the integration between the SOAR. So or the Jira, actually, if you want to have the SOAR or the Jira connection set up, you have to open this config YML file and set up the URL, the authentication, the basic information for the integration to work. Yeah, the risk management is quite straightforward. In the alert rule, you have the risk table. You have to first create the risk list. There is predefined, for now, there is predefined risk categories. So you can create your own categories, and then you are assigning the risk for individual category, right? So if I go, for example, for my syslog like that, and now the list of the fields is empty, but if I click read fields, and now the list fills up, I can select some value, some fields, and read the value, for example, from last 1 hour. And the values will fill up with the different values that are appearing within the last 1 hour in this field, right? And I can assign the value to the category, or I can add my own value and assign it, right? So, and that way I can submit the risk, and in that way I'm creating the risk list or the table, right? So here we have the reason login critical, right? So when we are creating or editing, for that matter, if we are editing any rule, we can specify the key, the risk key that this is supposed to be based on, right? So if I have, for example, those 3 fields in my risk table, in the risk list, by selecting those fields here, we are saying to the alert engine, hey, look at those values, check if those values are appearing on the risk list, and if they are, perform the calculation based on the categories that they are assigned to, right? So if the value will be assigned to the critical or high, then it will take those value and perform the aggregation, right? Because you can select what kind of aggregation, risk aggregation you want to use. You can take the average from all the values. You can calculate the maximum, which is the maximum from all the values. You can calculate which is the minimum from all the values, sum, or you can create the custom aggregation, which is described in the documentation somewhere, how to add your own aggregations, right? So risk evaluation is pretty straightforward. There isn't anything complicated or anything related MSSP to that, because it's just based on the general fields and the values that already exist in the system. Vulnerability management and compliance reporting, that is through the WASU. So we have the status, which is the general dashboard for the general CM visibility. And in here you have the individual tab for vulnerabilities, which you can see. Also, you have the option always to go directly to the Wazoo application. You have all the information here in the vulnerability dashboard. But if it's needed, then you can always jump into the engine, go to the vulnerabilities, and select the agent to see individual vulnerabilities detected from the agent perspective. But it is a little bit limited because you cannot really see what kind of vulnerabilities are appearing on how many agents from that level, because you are always in the sense of the vulnerabilities, you are always looking from the agent perspective. But here you can actually see on how many agents specific vulnerability is appearing, right? So I have my vulnerability number, and I can see that it is appearing on those agents, right? This one, this one, this one. And for the compliances, depending on which compliance you are looking for, because you can go to the modules and regulatory compliance, and you have the PCI DSS, GDPR, HIPAA, NIST, and TSC compliance available from the agent's view, right? But you can also use predefined dashboards for the different compliances that are already predefined in the system. So GLBA, SOX, NERC, or CIS, those are the compliances that are already built in, and you just basically view those individual compliances through the dashboards. And if you need any additional compliance, then just let us know, and we'll prepare the dashboard and the detection based on that. It depends whether we already have the material for building that compliance visualization, or do we have to supplement it with something else. The updated versions for the vulnerabilities, that is supposed to happen once per day, but more often it is for each version. But if you want, you can connect to the other more capable vulnerability scanner. You have the predefined dashboard for it, and there is a built-in internal scripting tool that allows us to pull data from this vulnerability scanner, and then you can present it on the dashboards as well and use it for vulnerabilities. I'm not sure if I have any data in it. Maybe not anymore. The truth being told is that there is a huge issue with the vulnerability scanners with keeping historical data. So the biggest gain here, not only from the MSSP perspective, but in general from the finance perspective, is that, for example, Enable would require additional license with additional costs if they are supposed to keep historical data of the vulnerabilities that they have detected. In the standard license, you have the current vulnerabilities that are detected. So per scan, you can see what is the current status. If you want to see the current status compared to the previous week or previous month, then sorry, but you don't have the historical data without additional license that covered that functionality. With the Energy Log Server, we are just keeping by default the historical data of the scans, so you don't have to pay additional license for something that you already have. But you don't have to use the commercial version. There is the Greenbone Greenbone is open source. I believe OpenVAS is also open source vulnerability scanner. So the connection with them is supported as well.